The blades are already spinning. A sleek, matte black helicopter cuts through the golden Aegean air. Below, the island of Mykonos stretches out like a postcard. White cubic houses, electric blue domes, a coastline ringed with yachts that cost more than most people's apartment buildings. And sitting inside that helicopter, watching it all from his leather seat, is a 26-year-old who chartered this entire aircraft not because he had to, but because he was running 10 minutes late. 10 minutes. Let that land for a second. Because that's not even the crazy part. The crazy part is that for him, the math made perfect sense. The world they live in. To understand what happens next, you have to understand where this story takes place. Not just geographically, but socially. Mykonos in summer is not a vacation destination. It's a performance. Every arrival is choreographed. Every entrance is deliberate. The right people notice who arrived on which yacht, who walked in through which door, and yes, who descended from the sky. There is a beach club on the southern coast of the island. You won't find its name through a Google search. There are no reviews, no booking links, no outdoor signage pointing you toward it. You get in because someone who is already in decides you should be there. The guest list on this particular afternoon includes a Saudi prince's nephew, a Russian tech founder, the heir to a European fashion house, and a handful of people whose only publicly known profession is simply being very, very wealthy. The party starts at noon. Our man, call him Edouard because that's close enough to the truth, is in his villa on the other side of the island at 11:50. The decision. Traffic on Mykonos in July is not traffic in any normal sense. It's a slow, honking, scooter-weaving gridlock that turns a 12-minute drive into 45 minutes of pure humiliation. Edouard knows this. His assistant knows this. His driver, who has been staring at the same 3 mopeds for the past 8 minutes, definitely knows this. So Edouard makes a call, not to the driver, to his aviation broker. 22 minutes later, a helicopter lands on the private helipad behind his villa. He steps aboard in linen trousers and sunglasses, a glass of still water in one hand, his phone in the other. The pilot lifts off. The flight from his villa to the beach club takes 4 minutes. 4 minutes. The bill for those 4 minutes, 100,000 euros. That works out to 25,000 euros per minute of flight time, roughly what a schoolteacher in France earns in an entire year. But here's what you have to understand about Edouard and about the world he moves in. He didn't think of it as 4 minutes of flight. He thought of it as an entrance. He thought of it as a statement. He stepped off that helicopter onto the beach club's helipad, sunglasses on, completely unhurried, and the entire terrace watched. He wasn't late anymore. He was the most interesting arrival of the day. The entrance. There's a specific social economy at work in these circles, and it operates on a currency that has nothing to do with actual money. What matters is narrative. What story are people telling about you after you've left the room? Or in this case, after you've descended from a helicopter in front of 200 people who weren't expecting one? Edouard sat down at his table, reserved, naturally, ordered a bottle of something that costs more than most people's monthly rent, and within the hour he had spoken to 3 people he'd been trying to reach for months. Business conversations that had stalled over email began moving again over drinks. An introduction was made. A handshake followed. Does that justify 100,000 euros? He would tell you yes, without hesitation. And the thing is, within the logic of his world, he isn't entirely wrong. How this became normal. These grand gestures don't come from nowhere. They're the result of decades, sometimes generations, of a culture that treats the dramatic and the excessive as the only natural response to ordinary situations. Talk to the naval architects who designed the mega yachts docked off this same island, and they'll tell you. The boats keep getting bigger, not because the owners need more space, because more space is visible, because 120 meters announces itself differently than 60, because the helipad on the deck of a super yacht isn't there primarily for transportation. It's there because a boat without a helipad is, in these circles, a boat that's trying. The submarine parked in the hold of the expedition yacht. The grand piano in the salon. The chef flown in from a 3 Michelin star kitchen in Paris to prepare a barbecue on a glacier in Greenland. None of these things are about need. They're about a very specific kind of communication wealth signaling not to outsiders, but to each other. 100,000 euros for a helicopter is, in that language, the equivalent of showing up on time. The crew he doesn't think about. Here is where the story gets genuinely interesting. While Edouard descended from the sky, somewhere on the other side of the island a crew of 4 was maintaining his villa. His housekeeper had pressed his linen trousers that morning. His private chef had prepared a breakfast he barely touched. His assistant had spent 40 minutes on the phone arranging the helicopter. That assistant earns perhaps 2,000 euros a month. The pilot earns more, perhaps 12 to 15,000, but has been on standby since 8 in the morning. The logic of ego. Psychologists who study extreme wealth often talk about what they call a compression of consequence. The way that, at a certain level of money, the feedback loop between action and consequence simply collapses. For most people, spending 10 times your rent on a helicopter is a decision with an aftermath. Savings depleted, explanations owed, months of restraint ahead. For Edouard, nothing changes. His bank account registers the transaction. His life continues. That absence of consequence doesn't just permit excess. Over time, it requires it. Because if nothing costs you anything real, the only way to feel the weight of a choice is to make it extraordinary. The helicopter isn't about transportation. It isn't even entirely about ego. It's about the last remaining way to make a decision feel like a decision. The helicopter isn't saying I'm rich. The helicopter is saying my time is worth more than yours. And in a room full of people who all believe exactly the same thing about themselves, arriving from the sky is the clearest way to make that argument. The outro. That evening, as the sun dropped into the Aegean and the beach club sound system shifted from house music to something quieter and more expensive, Edouard sat at the edge of the terrace with the people he'd come to see. The helicopter was long gone. The 100,000 euros were spent. The conversation had moved on to other things. An island someone was considering buying, a fund that was reportedly raising in the autumn, a restaurant in Tokyo that was impossible to get into unless you knew the right person. Nobody mentioned the helicopter. Not because it wasn't noticed, it absolutely was, but because in this world, mentioning it would be the only genuinely embarrassing thing that could happen. You spend 100,000 euros to make an entrance. Then you act as though you didn't. That, it turns out, is the most expensive part of all. Time and ego are the 2 most expensive things for the 1%, because they're the only 2 things money can't actually solve, only perform. If you found this interesting, there's an entire world of stories like this one, where the logic only makes sense from the inside, and the numbers only shock you if you're standing on the outside looking in. Which is exactly where we'll keep taking you.